Commander Veltar's crystalline appendages clicked nervously against the polished surface of his command desk as he reviewed the latest batch of Academy applications. The Galactic Defense Initiative had been accepting cadets from newly discovered species for the past century, but none had caused quite the stir that the human application had generated. Deathworlders, he muttered, the translation matrix struggling with the concept. His homeworld of Serenity Prime had gravity barely a quarter of galactic standard, atmosphere so pure it required no filtration, and weather patterns so predictable they hadn't changed in millennia. The thought of a species evolving on a planet with variable gravity, toxic storms, and predators that could kill with a single bite made his exoskeleton shiver. The human cadet, designated as Marcus Chen according to his file, stood barely 2 meters tall, unremarkable by most galactic standards. His bipedal form seemed fragile compared to the armored Krillian cadets or the energy-based ethereals. Yet something in his biometric readings had flagged him for immediate attention. Bone density 3 times galactic average, reaction time that broke the Academy's testing equipment, and a cardiovascular system that operated efficiently in conditions that would kill most sentient beings. "Sir," chirped Lieutenant Zixara, her feathered crest rising in excitement, "the human has completed basic orientation. Shall we proceed with standard tactical assessment?" Veltar's mandibles clicked in what passed for amusement among his species. Standard assessment? For a Deathworlder, this should be entertaining. The Simulation Chamber Alpha was the Academy's crown jewel, a holographic environment capable of recreating any battlefield scenario from the Galactic Archive. For 3,000 years, it had tested the finest military minds in the galaxy. The current scenario was a classic. Defend Station Omega-7 against a hive fleet using limited resources and a mixed crew of species with varying capabilities. The previous record holder, a brilliant Nexari strategist named Kolveth, had managed to save 67% of the station's population while maintaining 43% of defensive capabilities. It had taken him 4 hours and 12 minutes. Marcus Chen stepped into the simulation chamber with an expression that Veltar's cultural database labeled as mild interest. The human's dark eyes swept the holographic display once, taking in the massive space station, the approaching hive vessels, and the scattered defensive fleet. "Galactic Standard Engagement Protocols assume you have 1 week to prepare," announced the testing AI. "You have 6 hours to—" "I don't need 6 hours," Marcus interrupted, his voice carrying an odd quality that made several observers lean forward. "Give me 1 hour." The chamber fell silent. Even the ever-chattering Pixian cadets stopped their quantum fluctuations. "Cadet Chen," Veltar spoke through the comm system, "perhaps you misunderstand the complexity of this scenario. The Hive fleet consists of 12 dreadnoughts, 47 cruisers, and approximately 300 fighter-class vessels," Marcus finished, still studying the display. "Station population, 2.3 million beings across 47 species. Current defensive assets, 8 frigates, 3 destroyers, and 1 severely outdated dreadnought. Estimated enemy arrival, 53 minutes. The accuracy was perfect, but the timeline he'd absorbed this information was impossible. Veltar checked his chronometer. The human had been in the chamber for less than 30 seconds. Marcus began issuing orders with a speed that forced the translation matrix to lag behind. His first command sent shockwaves through the observation deck, evacuate the entire outer ring of the station and vent it to space. "Cadet, you're sacrificing civilian areas," Lieutenant Zixara protested. "I'm creating a debris field," Marcus replied without looking away from the tactical display. "Humans have been fighting in 3 dimensions while most galactic species think in 2. You see those outer rings as inhabited space to defend. I see them as weapons." His fingers danced across the holographic controls with inhuman precision. The station's artificial gravity generators, normally used to create comfortable living conditions, were repurposed into gravitational pulse weapons. The atmospheric processors became makeshift particle accelerators. Even the waste reclamation systems were converted into projectile launchers. "This is madness," whispered one of the Krillian observers. "No species would sacrifice their own infrastructure." "Humans would," Marcus said simply. "We've been doing it for millennia. Scorched Earth tactics, Sherman's March, the Moscow campaign. When survival is at stake, everything becomes expendable except the goal." 23 minutes into his hour, Marcus did something that violated every principle of galactic warfare. He moved the station. The massive structure, designed to remain stationary in its orbital position, slowly began to shift. Using carefully calculated gravitational pulses and the station's own momentum, Marcus turned humanity's greatest weakness, their Deathworld origins, into their greatest strength. He began using the station itself as a kinetic weapon. The structural integrity will fail. Commander Veltar's voice cracked through the comm. No, it won't, Marcus replied with disturbing confidence. You built this station to withstand solar flares, gravitational anomalies, and asteroid impacts. My homeworld throws worse at us every spring. The Hive fleet arrived to find not a static defensive position, but a moving fortress surrounded by a carefully orchestrated storm of debris, gravitational distortions, and improvised weapons that no military manual had ever conceived. Marcus used the station's rotation to create a slingshot effect, turning garbage processors into railguns and maintenance pods into guided missiles. But the most shocking moment came at minute 47. Instead of continuing the defensive action, Marcus launched the station directly at the Hive dreadnought formation. Cadet Chen! Veltar's voice reached a frequency that shattered 2 observation windows. You cannot use a civilian station as a ramming weapon. Watch me. The collision wasn't a suicide run, it was surgery. Marcus had calculated the exact angle and velocity needed to cripple the Hive command structure, while using the station's redundant hull design to survive the impact. The remaining fleet, leaderless and confused by tactics that existed in no database, fell into chaos. When the simulation ended, the statistics were impossible. 97% of the station's population saved, 89% of defensive capabilities maintained, and the entire Hive fleet either destroyed or routed. Time elapsed, 59 minutes, 14 seconds. The observation deck was silent except for the soft humming of ethereal cadets processing the impossibility of what they'd witnessed. How? Commander Veltar finally managed. Marcus turned toward the observation window, and for the first time his expression held something the cultural database labeled as a smile, but one edged with something darker, more primal. You've all been playing war games, he said simply. Humans have been playing survival games. The difference is that in war you follow rules. In survival, you make new ones. He paused at the chamber door, adding words that would reshape galactic military doctrine for generations to come. Also, you've never had to fight a predator species that considers orbital mechanics a recreational sport. 3 months later, the Galactic Defense Initiative rewrote their entire tactical manual. It became known throughout the galaxy as the Chen Doctrine, and every military academy from the core worlds to the outer rim began recruiting from Deathworlds. The universe, it turned out, had been playing chess while humanity had been playing survival. And survival, as Marcus Chen had demonstrated, always found a way to win.